So he can no longer access her accounts.
Not allowed to be near her by himself.
I'm Trixie Johnson of the League of Women Voters of San Jose, Santa Clara. Welcome to our Insight and Perspectives program, and today we're going to be talking transportation. Specifically, we're going to be talking about high-speed rail and how it will operate when it comes into San Jose. My guest is the Honorable Rod Diridon, former county supervisor and currently the executive director of the Mineta Transportation Institute at San Jose State. The Institute is a federal and state-supported university center of excellence, chosen and renewed through a competitive process for its excellent work on transportation management and policy, including major emphases on security and on financing. Welcome, Rod.
Trixie,
to
nice
have
to
you
be
here.
here.
Now, for many years, you served on the High-Speed Rail Commission, even as its chair. And so it must be gratifying, finally, to see that the start of construction is in sight. You want to talk a little bit about that start and why we're starting where we are?
Well, first, it is a great relief to see after study after study after study, going back as many as 40 or 50 years, that the state is proceeding with high-speed rail. And indeed, the construction will begin now in the Central Valley between a little town called Chowchilla, just north of Fresno, down through Fresno to Bakersfield. That'll be a $6 billion construction project to build up to the top of the rails. And that'll occur between early next spring until 2017, when the project will be done. And that'll be used by the Amtrak train in the Central Valley until the high-speed train is connected from each end down to LA on the south end and to Silicon Valley on the north end.
Okay, now there was a lot of controversy. Why are we starting out there where there are practically a lot fewer people than if you were in the Bay Area or LA? Why there?
Well, first, there's a lot of people beginning to live in the Central Valley. It's rapidly growing. But pardon me. Secondly, though, the Federal Railroad Administration told us very directly that we had to have 3 criteria in the starter element. It had to reach between 2 cities. Well, the only 2 cities we could reach with the $6 billion available was between Fresno and Bakersfield. Second, it had to be near where the maintenance base would be. The maintenance base has to be in the center of the system, because you have to dispatch both directions rather than one end or the other. So it had to be near the maintenance base. Finally, it had to be on a piece of track that would be straight enough and long enough so that you could test the new trains at full speed, 220 miles an hour. And the only place where you can do that is between Fresno and Bakersfield. Now, in addition to that, it was quite fortuitous, because by starting the system in the middle, now we have competition going on between Los Angeles and Silicon Valley as to who gets the first extension.
Oh,
and so where we had disagreements in those areas before, now both areas are chomping at the bit to be the first extension.
Trying to get it. Yeah, let's go a little bit more with some slides that will explain a bit what we're looking at. We've got an animated slide that shows the station here in San Jose, Diridon Station. I might add Diridon Station because you led the effort to preserve that station as a historic structure.
I'm very proud to have done that.
Thank you very much. And we have an animated slide that will show how that train is going to come into San Jose, how it will fit into the downtown, and some other things. So if they could bring up that animated slide and you can talk us through it, please.
Okay. This is the train station the way it stands now in downtown, the Diridon Station. You'll see the light rail system, which is there now. It comes down the west side of the station, goes under the station in a tunnel, and then comes up and goes into downtown San Jose. You see the commuter trains. There are 4 different commuter trains going into the downtown station now. Caltrain, Amtrak, the Capital trains, and the Altamont Express. Then you see the animation of how the high-speed level will go in above the current tracks, and then the canopy over the station. Then you see what the city has master planned in terms of infill development. That's a couple of $2 billion worth of privately invested infill development that'll add great assessed valuation to downtown in an area where it would cost it. Then you see the BART system that will go in under the whole thing, under the light rail system in a tunnel. And so you'll have all of those transit systems interchanging in downtown.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be one of the best served communities in terms of transit interconnect in the nation.
In just a little bit, we'll be showing a slide that shows how all those systems do work. Let's talk just briefly about, now we've got it into San Jose coming in on this, this section. How does it get into Santa Clara County?
It comes from a little town called Chowchilla that I'd mentioned, just north of Fresno. Then it proceeds westerly along Henry Miller Road, which is it's a currently existing road, so it doesn't disrupt the wildlife in the area. And it proceeds mostly along Henry Miller Road, proceeds on to the Diablo Mountains, and then primarily in tunnels through Diablo Mountains in generally the area of the Highway 152, but it doesn't follow 152. It's too crooked. And then straight through in tunnels to Gilroy, and then from Gilroy it follows generally adjacent to the Monterey Highway Union Pacific tracks, but not near the Union Pacific tracks, coming from Gilroy up to downtown San Jose.
Okay, and when you, there was some controversy about that too, but that's all been settled now. That route is fairly set.
It's set. There's still some discussion as to whether it will be in a tunnel or above ground coming through San Jose. I can tell you that they can't afford the tunnel, and you don't want a tunnel in our groundwater anyway.
I wanted to get to that as a separate topic here, because I think it's very important. That elevated track has caused a lot of controversy in San Jose. And can you explain the reasons why it's opposed?
Well, the elevated track coming through downtown San Jose would go over the top of Highway 87. It would then make an S turn over the top of the Highway 87, Highway 280 interchange, follow generally Highway 280 then over to the railroad tracks, and then along the railroad tracks up to the current station. So it doesn't go over housing except for a little corner of one area at all.
But it is very high.
But it will be elevated. Some of it will be as much as over 20 feet high, higher than the current structures. And that's unavoidable. Mm-hmm. At the same time, some of the more visionary people in San Jose feel that they can have an iconic structure built that would be very attractive, not unlike the Bay Bridge or the Golden Gate Bridge, to create a skyline for the city of San Jose as part of the structure, kind of a cable stay bridge or something like that. And so
what's the opposition to all of this?
Well, some people would like it to go underground in a tunnel. Well, I can tell you that it's not going to go underground. Even LA has had to give up their underground request, primarily because it's too expensive, but also because under the county of Santa Clara, city of San Jose especially, there is a groundwater basin. It's where the fresh water that we drink as an emergency source of water is stored. And if you extend that long, long tunnel through that area, it would cause serious pollution problems and drainage problems. Also, you'd have to put it right under Highway 280, 87, and the State Department of Transportation isn't going to allow that. If one of those pillars settled even a couple of inches, you couldn't use that interchange. And you couldn't use the interchange while you're in the construction. So I don't know how it could ever happen, and I hope that the city makes a decision soon that an iconic structured overhead elevated access to downtown San Jose would be the preferred route.
Now, what's the consequence if the city holds out longer? Does that mean we won't get the train as fast?
Absolutely, Trixie. You were a city council member in San Jose, and you understand politics better than almost anybody. If we delay in the northern end of the system, remember I mentioned there'd be competition between LA and Silicon Valley as to who gets the next route. Well, if we delay and LA says, come on, they've already given up their downtown request for underground structure. If LA says, come along, we're ready, then LA will get the first extension.
Okay. Why don't we take a look at these additional slides, the one that shows all the systems that come through by Diridon Station, because one of the advantages of Diridon is that it's going to be a real major hub. We've got on the screen now a slide that shows some of the lines that are coming through, and perhaps you can talk us through what some of these are.
The first yellow lines are the commuter rail systems that I've already named, coming into the valley and going through the Diridon station. The next is the BART system as it stands now, and next is the BART system as it's being extended now. It's under construction now from Fremont to downtown San Jose, and that will be in a relatively shallower tunnel going under the Diridon station. Then the green line is the light rail system that currently exists. That's the Guadalupe and Tasman light rail lines. And then you see the extensions to that system, which are in use now, and that's the Capitol Corridor and the Vasona Corridor. Now, all of those are in use now. Now, the dotted green lines are the light rail extensions that are planned. They are not under construction yet, but they're planned and will be built when funding becomes available. And as you can see, the Diridon station downtown is becoming a focal point for mass transportation interchange. Mm-hmm. The next is the local bus system. Now, there's so many local bus routes that they don't put those on the map, but they're a saturation in San Francisco, San Mateo, and Santa Clara County. And then the high-speed rail route goes through, and you can see that it goes right through the downtown station, extends up to San Francisco with higher speed, but not full high speed from Fremont north. Then the next is the indication of where the modal distribution points will be. The first will be the Diridon station, and the second next will be the Mineta Airport, Mineta International Airport. Now,
finally, a connection to the airport.
This will have a connection to the airport, and if we could go to the next slide.
Okay.
The one that shows the automated guideway transit system.
There you go.
You'll see how the interconnect is planned. This is a concept plan now. It's being studied between the airport, with a route clear around the airport, over to the Caltrain station in Santa Clara, and on down to the Diridon station in San Jose. And that gives you a direct cross-platform transfer to the airport from high-speed rail coming into San Jose from the Central Valley, and from high-speed rail coming, and Caltrain coming down the peninsula through Santa Clara. So all of a sudden, San Jose becomes the most convenient international airport in the Bay Area to the whole Santa Clara Valley and Central Valleys.
I like that. We might get more planes there. Who's going to pay for that automated guideway? You say it's San Jose's. Is that paid for by the airport? Is it paid for by the city? Do we know?
Well, it was going to be paid for in part by redevelopment funds. And as you know,
anymore.
the redevelopment agency has now been abandoned or taken back by the state. The funds probably will come from grant funds from the Federal Transit Administration and some airport fees. Probably. That hasn't been decided yet.
Okay, so that particular system is a ways off in the future.
Yes, they're planning to have it available so that when the high-speed train reaches San Jose, which will probably be in the mid-20s, early to mid-20s. Hopefully.
Will I live that long?
Oh, you will. We'll be there, Trixie, and we're going to ring the first bell. But they're trying to coincide the development of the automated guideway transit system that feeds the stations with the arrival of the high-speed trains.
With the arrival of high-speed rail. You mentioned the BART system coming in, showed the entrance there. What's the timing right now at this point, do you know, for when BART would actually come into the station area as opposed to staying out on the east side?
Well, it's under construction now from Fremont down to Berryessa. So that'll tap into the light rail system at Berryessa. From Berryessa to downtown San Jose is still not fully funded. We have good friends like Carl Guardino and the mayor and others who are fighting hard for those funds. There'll be grants from the Federal Transit Administration, from the California Transit Commission, and others that will ultimately pay for that additional couple of $1 billion to move it from for the Berryessa area through the downtown.
Okay, and we've already paid through sales taxes that we've already approved to deal with the operations.
The operations are covered by the 1/8% sales tax that the public approved at the polls. So what we need now is, I think it's about $3.5–4 billion to cover the rest of the construction from Berryessa through San Jose and to a maintenance yard that will be created in the old railroad yard in Santa Clara.
Oh, okay. Now we know where that money is coming from. Let's talk about the money for high-speed rail. We've got the money to start this first section. Have we got any more money guaranteed?
Yes, we do. We have committed now for the first section. And the first section, again, is from Chowchilla down to Fresno to Bakersfield, and with the bookends from Los Angeles down to Anaheim, and from San Jose to San Francisco. Those are funded, and that's about $8 billion, of which $4 billion comes from the tax that was approved for high-speed rail in 2008. That's Proposition 1A rail bonds for high-speed rail. Now,
Not so much a tax, they're bonds.
It's
we'll
a bond.
Pay for those through general taxes.
It's a general obligation bond. And those will be paid for by the people of California and been voted for and approved. All of that is proceeding now. We will still have about $5 billion more unspent in the high-speed rail bonds, the Prop 1A rail bonds. Those haven't been committed yet. Those will be used as a draw for federal grants. And the federal grants will be pursued as those funds become available at the federal level through the Federal Railroad Administration. Now, if I were to guess, I'd imagine another 30% of the project. The rest of the project will cost about $58 billion, something like that. That will probably maybe as much as 20% to a third coming from grants from the state and federal government. But I think a major portion will come from private investors who will want to gain the franchise to operate that system for the next 30 to 40 to 50 years and gain the profit from the system during that time. The economic studies, the most conservative economic studies, have indicated that the system will net between 1.5 and maybe as much as $4 billion a year, depending on how it's operated. And when it's completed, that can pay off tremendous amount of investment by private investors. And so I would think probably before the mid-teens to 2020, we're going to see bids coming in from China or Japan or France or Germany or Italy or Spain, other countries that have high-speed rail systems. Remember, 30 countries have high-speed rail systems now. And those countries, I think, are going to band together to create what's called the franchise bid and come in and bid $50, $60 billion in order to be able to control the California franchise, be in a position then to bid for the other 12 high-speed rail systems that have been approved in the United States.
Are the other systems around the world financed that same way by private investors, or is that a model that has been used elsewhere?
No, it really hasn't. The other systems have been funded by government. In almost all of the areas, government has paid for the construction of the high-speed train systems. Once those systems are built, with one exception, they have become profitable. So profitable that one of the more recent ones, the Italian system, has been turned over to a corporation run by the chair of the board of Ferrari. He, of course, had the trains repainted red, and that system now is running at a strong profit from Milano down to Naples and across the northern part of Italy.
Okay. So at least one corporation was interested in dealing with high-speed rail.
Well, there'll be many. There'll be many.
At that point.
Private corporations operate the system in Germany and France too, although they're somewhat socialistic.
Lufthansa in Germany?
Lufthansa is the operator,
Oh, the operator.
on some of the lines in Germany.
Okay, are we looking at the state operating the system, or these private entities would then operate the system? And how do we as a state retain control of this asset that we have provided?
The state law says that the asset is the state's and cannot be sold. So it will always be owned by the people of the state of California and administered through the California High-Speed Rail Authority. Now, probably the rates will be set through the State Public Utility Commission because it will be a public utility.
That might cause people some anxious thoughts right now.
Well,
But
it's a way of making sure that whoever gets it doesn't jack up the prices so high that the people are gouged. It will be a public asset. And but the High-Speed Rail Authority does not have the staff nor the skill to operate the system, nor build it. So they'll be doing all of these things: design, building, maintaining, operating, and financing. They'll be doing all of that through a contracting process, competitive bids with huge consortia, probably led by countries that will come in and bid against each other to become the operator for the next 30, 40, or 50 years.
Does that disturb you that we have to go to other countries to do this?
It makes me angry because we were the leader in rail transportation technology up until the 30s, 40s, and 50s. For 100 years, we led the world in rail transportation technology. And then the automobile and the petroleum companies just took over. And they have persuaded us that petroleum and automobile are the only ways to get around.
Is there any potential that in the bidding to these international organizations that we could require manufacturing in the United States?
Well, absolutely. It will be required to be in the United States because the federal law that created the grants for high-speed rail requires that it be a 100% Buy America, which means all the money has to be spent in America on American companies. Now, that probably won't occur 100%. The Secretary of Transportation can give waivers, and we know that there are some things we can't buy in America. Some of these technological skills we're going to have to buy from foreign countries because we don't have high-speed trains.
Does California have a chance to get any of that?
I believe California does. Let me give you some examples. Right up here at the Toyota plant where Tesla is located now, there's great capacity for filling part of that plant with a manufacturer. Toyota owns that plant. Toyota is a Japanese manufacturer. The Shinkansen Japanese high-speed train is one of the finest in the world. The Chinese are looking at land up and down California to think about acquiring for this purpose. Siemens, the German manufacturer of high-speed trains, already has a manufacturing plant in Sacramento. So indeed, there will be a manufacturing facility in America, probably in California, building high-speed trains.
Well, that would be a nice advantage to having that whole system here, and we don't hear much discussion about those kinds of future things. We've been so tied up in these controversies about the elevated train coming in at the station or the peninsula issues, which I gather are now relatively resolved.
Well, I think they're pretty well resolved, although there's still complaints. But I think they're relatively resolved because the conclusion of the High-Speed Rail Authority is that they would keep the system within the current right-of-way. If they stay within the current right-of-way, they are not going to have any environmental disruption because they're not going to be building outside the right-of-way. So I believe that
would there be noise issues or anything of that sort that have to be dealt with?
Much quieter than the current Caltrain. So any noise issues would be on the plus side because by doing the electrification of the high-speed system, we're going to electrify the Caltrain too. So it'll make Caltrain much quieter.
No diesel engines.
That's right.
That's been a dream of Caltrain for a long time.
You recall that yourself.
I think the residents along that line would be happy to have at least that part of the project.
Well, not only will the diesel noise and pollution be gone, but all of the cross streets will be put under. They'll be dipped under the tracks.
Okay.
So there'll never be any crossings anymore. So the bells and whistles that people are used to hearing that wake them up at night will be gone too.
Okay. What about safety on a high-speed rail system? How, with these trains charging through so fast, especially when they come toward urban areas, does the speed alter? What do you do to make them more safe as they come into a big city like San Jose?
Well, when they go through into a heavily populated area, they do slow down from the 220 miles an hour to about 100 to 120 miles an hour, and then on down to 50 miles an hour in very heavily populated areas.
So like the peninsula would be more?
Probably 120 miles an hour. And at 120 miles an hour, they make no noise. Now, let me mention something though. The corridor will be sealed, so you will not be able to get to the high-speed train. There'll be chain link fences and sound walls on either side, and all the cross traffic will be dipped under. So there'll be no way to get to the high-speed train. If you wanted to commit suicide, you'd have to really try hard in order to figure a way, and you couldn't do it accidentally. Let me give you an example though. The Shinkansen in Japan has been operating in 1964. The Japanese high-speed train has been operating since '82. They've carried billions and billions of riders and never had one fatality. Not one fatality, either with the cross traffic or on the trains.
Is that a safety record that most of the other high-speed rail trains have achieved?
I thought there's been one freak accident in Germany. There was a freak accident in China recently that killed several people, I think near 100 people. But those happen very, very rarely. Yet we killed 32,000 people on American freeways last year, in 1 year.
Caltrain has had its problems with suicide deaths in particular, some
Yeah.
accidental, but a lot of suicides. Is there going to be any improvement for, other than the electrification as it parallels on up, some of these things you've talked about, high-speed rail doing, will that spill over to more safety on the Caltrain line?
The high-speed rail improvements will improve the Caltrain system because it'll be applied to both.
Okay.
So the Caltrain tracks and the high-speed rail tracks will be sealed in this perimeter of chain link fences and sound walls and undercrossing so that the cars can't get to the tracks anymore. So it'll make the Caltrain system very much safer along with the high-speed rail system.
That sounds very good.
It's
there
a
have been
plus,
far
plus,
too many.
plus. You bet.
Far too many of those deaths. We're looking at what time for, assuming we don't resolve the elevated track. When can we, you said 2025, 26
Well,
for San Jose?
if we don't resolve the elevated tracks, I don't believe high-speed rail will bring the system to San Jose.
It's that serious.
I think, oh yeah, they're not going to spend the roughly $2 to $4 billion to build 1 mile of track coming through downtown San Jose when you know that Caltrans will not let them go under the freeway interchange, and they don't want to be building. The environmental community won't let them build in the groundwater under the city. So if the city insists upon a tunnel, they're saying that they don't want high-speed rail, in my opinion. So, but if they begin to cooperate and fight the battle, I would expect to see high-speed rail in downtown San Jose at the Diridon station by the late 20s, 25,
Sounds good.
26, 27, 28, something like that.
It's beginning to sound very real.
It
And
is
for
real.
so many years, it's been a dream. I want to just briefly put up the address for the Mineta Transportation Institute so that folks will know where they can get more information about this at the Policy Center there at the Mineta Transportation Institute. And there's always more information, and things change. I assume
Yes.
as we do the construction, we'll learn as we go, and there will be incremental possibilities for change, but things like the automatic guideway and so on are going to continue to be developed. When do you expect the plan for the automated guideway?
This is run
Be
by the
complete?
city of San Jose.
Okay, do you know when they
and
expect
the
to
person who
finish?
is the lead on this is a person you know, Laura Stachinsky.
Oh, okay.
Is doing the studies on it, and they have done the studies. They have come to the conclusion that it's a little early to try to build this thing,
Okay.
and I don't expect them to really get determined about it until nearer
Gives us
2000.
more to look at.
2020.
And we
Yes.
thank you very much for coming, and this has been the League of Women Voters, Perspectives and Insights. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks,
Check
Tracy.
out the League of Women Voters, where we have information on politics, and we're a lot of fun. Come and join us. Look out for membership. We'd be delighted to have you.